Okay. So let's begin then. We are sharp at 12 p.m. All right. So let's go ahead. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up there. Thank you for that. Okay. So to start off, I want to ask you all a question. Yes, Chris, I'm seeing some yeses, some nos. All right. Okay. 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 Great. So some yeses, some nos. Now, based on that, right now, do you feel well rested? Do you feel energetic? You can say yes, no. Okay. Again, a mixed set of responses. All right. So, for those of, okay, a lot of no's I'm seeing. All right. So, this workshop specifically, I hope that will be helpful to you and is enriching for you. Okay. So, that is our first few questions. So before I go ahead anymore, I will just introduce myself, okay? Uh, and then we can move on to the rest of the workshop. All right. So my name is Lyanne Fernandes. I work full time here as a psychologist at MindTribe. I've been in this field for a while now, and this topic specifically is something that is very close to my heart. And I'm really excited to share what I've learned along the way with you today. And I really hope that it is insightful for you and you take back something with you that will help you throughout your journey of feeling well rested, of resting guilt free. All right. I hope that this is a very interactive workshop. If you have something to say, you can definitely raise your hands. The chat box is also open for you guys. All right. Okay. So now I want you to imagine this scenario. All right. So imagine you've had a very long day. All right. And you finally come and you slump on the couch and you think, okay, now I'm going to relax and I'm just going to Netflix and chill. All right. Suddenly, your parent or your spouse or somebody you live with, they walk in, they see you resting, right? And they start taunting you. They tell you, you just want to do nothing all day, kuch bhi nahi karna chahte, right? And you just want to be lazy, right? Have any of you some experienced something similar? You can give me a thumbs up if yes. You can type in the chat box also if yes. Okay. So all yeses over there. All right. So, would one of you want to just unmute and tell me how you felt in that moment when you experienced this? Yes, Suraj.
I felt really annoyed and frustrated.
Okay. So, annoyed, frustrated is something you felt in that moment. All right. Does anybody else want to share their experience of how they felt? Aditi says she felt very irritated. All right. Okay. So, yes, Ajay, go on.
Ma'am, I just reacted. I got angry at them and started shouting at them that I've been through this all throughout the day, and still you're.
Right, right. And it is absolutely understandable why we might feel misunderstood or why we might feel frustrated and annoyed at them, right? Because this day that you've had might have been very tiring to you subjectively, but they don't know that and they see one aspect of it, they see you relaxing, and that is what they comment on, right? And this often can make us feel like, uh, okay, like how I actually was didn't matter to them and I had to mold according to them, resentment, doubtful, angry, whether I should say something or not, right? Ashish also says he felt guilty, right? Absolutely. These are very understandable things that we might feel, right, when we experience this. And it might, in a way, make us feel that, over the years, especially if you've grown up in a house where just resting meant that you were being lazy, that you were not being productive, right? It might make you feel that maybe I don't deserve to rest, right? And even the next time when nobody is around and you're just trying to take some rest, right, it might feel that, oh, I'm feeling so guilty about this right now, right? So this is very common, and if you've continuously grown up in an environment like this, sometimes when you're just resting and somebody comes at the door, you might suddenly get startled, or you might go hurry that, oh, I have to go do something, I have to pretend like I've been busy this whole time. Have any of you ever done that? You can give me a thumbs up if yes, if you have sort of hurried when you saw someone coming in, right? Absolutely. Okay, so all yes is there as well, right? So in that moment when you do feel like this is something you have to notice, you have to get curious about, right? Why am I feeling this way? Where is this feeling coming from, that I don't deserve to rest, that I always have to be busy, right? And once you notice that, something you can tell yourself is that I don't have to earn my rest, right? I am deserving, I'm worthy of rest and leisure time. Okay, because rest is something that is very normal, and it's an essential need that every human needs to meet, right? So this is something that takes practice, and some of the ways that we can do this is something we're going to learn today in our workshop. All right, so with that, this is what we intend to cover today. All right, so let's just get right to this. Okay, so there are two pictures here. I want you to tell me what differences you can see between being lazy and resting. You can type in the chat box, you can unmute as well. Yes, Chris.
From my perspective, I don't see a difference at all. Like, I'd be curious what they went through throughout the day and how they felt. Without that, it's impossible to differentiate.
Sorry, Chris, you weren't quite clear to me. Could you repeat that, please?
So, just from this picture, it's not. This picture isn't enough to actually differentiate. There is be curious to know what each of them had gone through and how they felt during those times and things like that. So without that, it's impossible to actually differentiate between them.
Okay, all right. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. Some of you are saying, I don't see any difference. Some say it's just the way we perceive it. Some says being lazy connotes less productivity, while resting connotes a productive day. All right. Okay. So very different answers. Okay, there are more as well. Difference that being lazy is being less productive, and resting is something we do after being productive. All right. I think it's psychological. There is no difference. All right. Okay. Great answers, all of you. Thank you. Now, let me talk about what I think the difference between these two is. All right. So, one of the key things that differentiates between laziness and resting is that laziness can just be inactivity, right? Just not doing anything. Whereas resting is something we do very intentionally. So, this is something maybe we are doing to take a break, to unwind, right? Laziness might sometimes just be us avoiding something that, we don't quite feel like doing or not in the mood for, right? So, that is one of the differences. Next, rest is something that is supposed to re-energize us. If it's not making us extremely re-energized, at least restore us back to the baseline level of our um, feeling rested, right? When it comes to laziness, it might not necessarily be re-energizing. In fact, sometimes being lazy makes us feel even more lazy, right? Okay. Now, a third difference is, I think someone said in the chat box as well, rest is something that we might do when we are feeling tired or after being productive, right? Whereas laziness doesn't really have a time, it can be like anytime, right? Um and the feelings are, associated with laziness and rest is also something that we can talk about, whereas where effective rest is something that is to be done without feeling any guilt. If you are trying to relax but in the back of your mind you're constantly thinking that, oh, I should be working, or I should be doing something else, or I should not be doing this, that is not effective resting, right? And one of the core differences that I think we can spot between laziness and rest is that laziness is something when we can do something but we don't want to, right? Whereas if you really want to do something but you are unable to do that, you can't get your body to, just get out of that rut and do it, that might be a sign that your body actually needs rest, right? And the whole purpose behind using this specific picture is that, on the outside they might look very similar, but there are some very core differences between laziness and rest. All right, and sleep is one part in which we can do both of these, right? But it's not the only way that we can rest. All right. Okay. Now another question for you guys. What are some signals that you notice in yourself that tell you that you're tired, that you need rest? You can answer in the chat box.
Ma'am, not able to focus.
Okay, unable to focus. All right. Yawning. Okay. Yes, Chris.
Physically, I would feel aches and my eyes would feel heavy, and um, other than that, I would be a lot more edgy in my and a lot less energy to do the stuff I want to do, because that just feels like बहुत ज़्यादा लगता है in a way. So yeah.
Okay, so Chris, your voice is still a bit patchy. So just give me a second. Uh, Hello. Yes, I go on. You were saying something? Go on, Sai. Okay. Some of the responses in the chat box are talking about low energy, irritation, not feeling energetic, mind chattering, okay, feeling heavy inside, a lot going on, uh, unable to process, brain fog, all right, mental exhaustion, burnouts, right, being tired without a reason. Absolutely, absolutely. These are definitely signs of being tired. Okay. And next, I want you to tell me, how do you respond to these signals that your body sends you, or that your brain sends you? How do you generally respond to this? What do you do about these signals? You can raise your hand and let me know. You can also type in the chat box if you're comfortable. Okay. Angeline says she generally ignores it. Aditi talks to someone about it. All right. Anything else? Okay. You sleep, have a good cup of coffee. Okay. Laying in bed, crying, resting, sleeping, something I love like reading or cooking. All right. All of these are great ways of, dealing with being tired, because different people have different ways of dealing with feeling tired, right? Of resting. Uh, okay. More irritation, because you don't realize what's happening. Absolutely. Happens with a lot of us. Eating something sweet helps. Okay. Procrastination and feeling guilty. Okay. Uh, Take a break, listening to calming ghazal, spinning my charka. Love doing it. All right. Laying on the floor. Depends on how involved I am in the stuff I'm currently doing. All right. So very interesting and very different ways all of us have. Okay. So now I want you to focus on these ways that you use to, deal with being tired. And I want you to tell me that when you do these things, does it help you feel re-energized? And if yes or no, what does it mean? If it is helpful, what does it mean? If it does not help you, what does it mean? Okay. Sometimes, temporarily, never, doesn't help, partially. Okay. All right. Okay. So would like someone like to unmute and tell me if it doesn't help them, what does it mean? Yes, Chris.
It depends actually if I'm feeling uncomfortable in a social situation, or if I'm binging on something, then the tiredness would just accumulate over, and then it would explode or something like that, or explode, and I would just feel like doing nothing at all, or just being in the loop of binging. And there are times like today, like it's been one of the very rare days that I didn't use uh, phone or and instead read a book after my breakfast and things like that. And even before that, I didn't use phone, so I feel energized and like finding my own meaning in the things I'm doing. So
Right, right.
yeah, it's different and like unusual, and I want to continue it, but it just feels like whether I would be able to or not.
Chris, your voice is really patchy, right? Could you try rejoining maybe because I can't really hear half of the things that you're saying, but I did hear that sometimes it is helpful and it does help you feel re-energized, right? Yes, Ashish, go ahead.
Most of the times, the first thing I feel is guilt that I have wasted my free time and I don't
Hmm.
feel energized at all.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So guilt is something that you feel when you do any of these things, right? So okay, so some of these things, like you guys have said, they do help sometimes, doesn't help sometimes. So if we talk about what this means, right? So the whole purpose of rest is doing something that helps you feel re-energized, right? That helps you unwind, that helps you relax. So if it is something that is helping you do that, then definitely this is a method that is working for you specifically, right? But if it is not helping you, if there is guilt coming in, then this might be a sign that this method is not quite helpful for you, that maybe your body has different needs that need to be met in a different way in terms of rest, right? So this is something that we can explore today, right? Okay, so now let's explore what are the different types of needs and rests that our body could use, right? Because sleep is one way that we can do that is pretty common in your answers as well, right? But it's not the only type of way. So now let's talk about the 7 different types of rests and what we can do to meet these. Okay. So these 7 types of rests are physical, mental, social, spiritual, sensory, emotional, and creative. All right. And these were given by Dr. Sondra Dalton Smith. And this is what we are going to discuss today. Okay. Now I want this to be a hands-on workshop. So I want you to grab your pen and paper and just give me a thumbs up when you're ready because we are going to come up with our own list of what rests we are going to employ in our lives. Okay. Just give me a thumbs up when all of you are ready. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up, so I'm assuming most of you are ready. Okay, so let's start off then. Okay, so first let's talk about physical rest. Now, some of the signs that tell you that you need physical rest, or the ways in which your body might lose your physical energy, right, is a lack of sleep. If you're overtraining, if you're an athlete or someone who goes to the gym very often but overtrains, or if you have very physically demanding jobs, right? So, all of these might deplete your body's physical energy. So let's talk about some of the ways in which we can take physical rest. Would anyone like to unmute and take a guess about what might come under passive and active types of physical rest? You can also type in the chat box and let me know. Sleep, all right. Sleep is passive, yes. Power nap, definitely, right? Okay. So, body scan exercises, shavasana, active deep sleep. All right, great examples. Sleep meditation, okay. Um all right, so these are definitely great and correct examples. Passive irritable sleep. So that's not quite correct. So the examples that we are discussing over here is some of the ways that we can healthily rest, right? So let's try to guess what are some of the healthy ways in which we can passively and actively rest in terms of physical rest. All right. So some of you have said talked about sleep, power naps. These are definitely correct examples of passive type of physical rest, right? So 7+ hours. Taking power naps. Something that I've noticed for myself is that when I set a 23-minute timer, I take around 3 minutes to fall asleep and then 20 minutes for the actual nap, and that is something that really helps me, feel fresh after my power nap. This is something that you can explore for yourself, see what time works best for you, right? Another way is just being still, right? If you're somebody who moves around a lot, just trying to stay still is something that might help you. Okay. And I hope that each of you are making note of what you think might be good examples of passive and active physical rest for you on the paper that you got. Repeat the power nap point. Yeah, so I was saying that 23 minutes is something that works for me. I keep a timer for 23 minutes. That is something that you can explore for yourself and see what works best for you. All right. So these are passive examples of physical rest. When we talk about active, this is doing something like stretching or maybe getting a massage, or you might have seen those ergonomic chairs or desks. So if you're someone who is at a desk job for most of the time, using things like an ergonomic chair or a desk might be really helpful when it comes to physical rest. All right. Have all of you sort of gotten an idea about what physical rest might involve and maybe made notes for yourself of what you want to try or what has worked this far for you under physical rest? If yes, you can give me a thumbs up. Okay. All right. Does anybody need a little more hints maybe about what this could include and haven't really been able to come up with their own examples? You can let me know that as well. Okay, so some of you have some questions in the chat box. Okay, so sleep meditation. So I assume that is something where some people have trouble falling asleep. So meditating before your sleep might be something that just sort of helps you calm down. Physical grounding could also help if you're someone that notices a lot of restlessness within your body, then that would definitely help, right? So that would be an active sort of way. Okay. Body scan might also help you, right? Because if there's something that when you notice tension in your body that you're feeling, uh, that could also include physical rest. Yes, absolutely. Um,
What was the first one, ma'am? Sorry to disturb you. Before body
of
scan. Sorry, what,
uh,
ma'am?
Physical grounding is something that Chris was asking about.
Okay.
Okay, so that is something you can try out and see if that works for you. Yes, Chris, you had a question.
Yes, in sleep meditation, I actually put guided meditation before when I go to bed to sleep, so it can help the sound and the breathing exercises help me to fall asleep. So would it count in active or passive?
I think it would count as it could be both, honestly, because you're doing it to help you sleep, right? So maybe in that way it is passive. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So repeat some examples of active rest. Okay. So like I was saying, you could do some stretching, right? So even within stretching there's static stretching, there's dynamic stretching, right? Getting a massage, and different people also enjoy different types of massages, so that is also something you can explore and see what works best for you. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to the next type of rest, which is mental rest. Okay. So if you're somebody who sort of has a tendency to overwork your thinking, then this is something that you might need more work on, right? This is something that you might have deficits in. So could some of you tell me what you think examples of mental rest could be? You can unmute, you can type in the chat box. Yes, Vivek?
Meditation basically, or sitting for some time idle to
Hmm.
not do anything, basically not thinking.
Okay, okay, definitely. Meditation is something that could help you calm your thoughts, right? Listening to music is something that helps Ashish break from screen time, getting away from the screen, right? Okay, especially when you're constantly scrolling, maybe your mind is, going on and on and on. Getting away from screen time is also something that comes under a different type of rest. So we'll discuss more about that as well. But it can definitely come under the mental rest. Okay, being in a quiet place, swiftly bringing back my attention to the present moment, my body sensation, and my surrounding. Yes, absolutely. This is something, in fact, that we do in terms of mindfulness meditation, right? Just letting yourself be in the present moment. Because sometimes when we are overthinking, we either tend to go too much into the future or we tend to go too much into the past, right? So just staying in the present moment is something that can definitely help us. Okay. So here I'll discuss some examples that I have to share with you, and you can definitely note down what you think works best for you. Okay. So one of the ways in which we can sort of give our mind a rest is writing down our to-do list, right? So instead of constantly having in mind that, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, just putting it down on paper relieves yourself of that mental load, right? So making a to-do list is something that helps, right? If you're going on a trip or if you're going to the supermarket and you have a list of things that you have to do, or you can just make a checklist of the things that you've already completed. Okay, so if you're packing or if you have to buy groceries, right, just make a checklist of the things that you've already done, the things that are left to do, right? Another example is, especially if you're someone who works from home or if you have a tendency to bring your work back home, right? Creating a shutdown ritual to just help you separate your work and your personal life, right? So it can be something very simple, like maybe you wear different clothes while you're working, and then at the end of the day you change out of those clothes to sort of tell your brain that, okay, now I'm in my home avatar, I don't have to be in my work avatar, right? So just creating a shutdown ritual like that can help. Do any of you have a shutdown ritual that you might want to share? Yes, Rakshita.
I'm actually preparing for a competitive exam. So
Hmm.
for me, it's not about carrying the work to home or something. It's like you need to prepare for it for more than 12 hours a day, right?
Hmm.
So even before I sleep, I do have a shutdown ritual. Like
Hmm.
I read something else so that I can tell myself that I'm not in the same routine of reading for the exam.
Hmm.
I'm doing something like a hobby or something before I sleep. So
Right.
and so that I don't sleep as soon as I finish studying. I give some time for it. So that
Right, absolutely. So that becomes sort of a mental boundary for us to let us know that we are crossing onto the other relaxing side, right? Yes, Abhishek, go on. Yes, Abhishek.
हेलो
Okay. Ye-
हेलो
yes, yes.
मुझे दिन के एंड में नहीं क्या मतलब बाहर घूमने जाना पसंद है अकेले मतलब एकदम शांत रोड पे
Hmm. Okay, okay,
मतलब हाँ बिफोर स्लीपिंग इन अ
okay.
फॉरेस्ट
All right. So it's creating that also. Okay. It just helps us differentiate. Shutdown rituals do work for students as well, Ashish. Yes. So, for example, It can just be even saying some words to yourself out loud, right? You can just say something like, I am done for the day. And this is something that you do on a daily basis so that it just helps you transition, right? Taking a bath also. All right, great. Okay, great. So, shutdown ritual is one thing, right? If you're somebody who is constantly involved in problem solving, just taking a break from that can help, right? Meditation, as a lot of you mentioned, is definitely a way for mental rest. All right. Okay. So now let's move on to social rest. This involves sort of evaluating your relationships, right? How you interact with other people. What do you think might come over here? What are some examples you can think of? Yes, Rakshita?
I think it's sometimes required when you have harsh conversations or when probably there is differences between us, or sometimes maybe you just don't want to talk because you're exceeded the limit of your speaking
Hmm.
ability. That is what I feel like. I think I do have some hours of socializing or talking to somebody. After that, I need some rest.
Right.
So yeah, that might be one part of it. Other thing might be when you are having a difficult conversation with somebody, or even when you are changing your friendships, something like that.
Right, right, absolutely. Especially when you're having difficult conversations or any disagreements, right? Just taking a step back sometimes really helps. Um, Spending time with friends, playing with pets, yes, definitely, definitely. Right. So, if I discuss some of the examples that I have in mind, is sometimes even within our friends, there are some people who sort of make us feel like they give us more energy, right? When you spend time with them, you feel more energized, right? But sometimes we might have to reevaluate those relationships, that whenever we do interact with them, we sort of feel like they're draining our energy, right? Suraj says consciously or selectively socializing people or stepping back when it's important. Yes, definitely. That is definitely a part of social rest, right? So just evaluating what gives versus what drains your energy, right? Um, and One other thing I think Rakshita also mentioned, right? Sometimes when you've been out interacting with a lot of people, you might just need to spend some alone time, right? As an introvert, this is something I can definitely tell you that I just need some time to sort of unwind, to recharge after a day of a lot of interactions or just being around other people, even if I wasn't talking, right? So that is something that you can explore, right? And you don't have to feel guilty about wanting to be alone. It is just something you might need to recharge, right? Pets also, like some of you said, just spending time with animals sometimes just gives you that social rest because you're not required to talk to them or you know just do anything. So that might be a type of rest. Okay. Chris says giving her time to process, giving herself time to process really helps her. Okay, that is definitely great. So you can take examples from what people are saying in the comments as well, the examples that I'm giving as well, right? And just try to come up something with that you feel would be helpful when it comes to social rest. All right, let's move on to the next one. You can give me a thumbs up if you're ready this far with the first three of the rests. All right. Okay. Great. Lots of thumbs ups I'm seeing. Okay. Okay. Great. So let's move on to the next one. All right. Okay. Spiritual rest. When we talk about spiritual rest, this is basically talking about being part of something that is bigger than yourself. What do you think this might include when it comes to examples? Would anybody like to share? Yes, Rakshita.
I think it's about journaling because for me, when I was I mean, I have felt overburdened with ambitions and goals and all of that. So once I sit and write it about like what am I doing other than the materialistic things, like probably what is permanent. What basically I was just exploring about journaling in different types, and what I found out was apart from the emotions and the day-to-day activities we feel, we have a duty and an impact to be left as humans. So recognizing that might help us detach from the outcomes and daily harshness or the requirements we need to put in many fields.
Right, right. So just a sort of introspection, connecting with your personal values is something that you find helps you attain spiritual rest, right? Um, okay, Rakshita, a lot of people in the chat are saying that they are not able to hear you very clearly. Um,
I There is a what borewell connecting digging going on near my home, so
okay,
I
okay, all right, no problem. All right. Um, okay, now they can hear you. Okay. So, what is a sign that we might need spiritual rest is maybe sometimes we sort of get so into our own mind, right, that we sort of forget to connect to the outer world. We're so involved in our own thoughts and something that is just going on repeat, on loop inside our head, that we forget to look sort of outwards, right? So that might be a sign that spiritual rest is something that you might need. And when we hear the word spiritual, we might often feel like, oh, this is something to do with religion, right? But that's not always true. There are a lot of ways in which we can do this without it necessarily meaning religion, right? So one of the ways is volunteering, right? So when you're involved with your community, it can sort of help you be connected to a larger good, something that is bigger than yourself, right? So that is something that might help. Okay, you can explore that if that gives you like a feel good feeling, right? If you are in a job that feels to you that it is purpose driven, right? That it feels like you're heading towards something big that sort of gives back, that is also one way in which you can do that. Then definitely your faith based system, right? If your religion is something that can also give you spiritual rest. So praying or being part of various activities, right, that are aligning with your belief system, that are aligning with your faith based activities, is also one way you can attain spiritual rest. And journaling is also something that came up in our discussion. So specifically gratitude journaling also can help you when it comes to spiritual rest. Helping friends, yes, definitely. When we do something without necessarily expecting something in return, there's no expectation, right? You're just being altruistic. That can definitely help in terms of spiritual rest, right? Friends, neighbors, anybody. Bigger scheme of things, role in entire universe, right? So this again is definitely helpful, right? Introspecting, but also we have to keep in mind over here that we don't again sort of go inwards so much that we remain stuck in that spiral, right? So just try to extend it outwards as well. All right. Yes, Chris.
So one thing I notice about myself is giving myself time to just be myself instead of thinking about being according to or not according to or someone else's expectations of me gives me a lot of
Hmm.
like trying to connect with myself. Maybe it can be the same as the what Papa is saying, or maybe it would be different than that. But that bringing that boundary and actually focusing on myself, because there are times when I get so caught up in what other people are thinking about me or my life that I
Right.
forget what matters to me or how I am doing for real, and that just goes on. So
Right.
taking a rest from that is also a kind of
Okay.
rest.
So, thank you for sharing that, Chris. This is definitely a very common concern. However, this wouldn't come in spiritual rest. This would come under emotional rest, and that is something we'll be discussing further. All right. So, just keep that in mind for when we reach that. All right. Cool. So let's move on to sensory rest. Right. So this is what I was talking about. So a lot of you said that sometimes taking break from social media really helps you, right? Because in this day and age, just constantly scrolling through reels or shorts or whatever it is, it just gives us that constant overstimulation, right? It's not just stimulation, it happens for so long that it overstimulates us, right? So sensory rest is something that we have to sort of keep in mind, right? Detoxing from your social media is one way we can do that. Um, okay, so what do you guys think might come under sensory rest apart from detaching from social media? Something that you might want to note down in your personal examples in this list. Yes, Sumit?
It can even include eating bland food, not like the good food which we have every day.
Hmm.
That can also lead to sensory reset.
Hmm. Very,
Yeah.
very interesting point, right? Sometimes we might be we might be used to consuming a lot of food that just overstimulates us in a gustatory way, right? So eating something that is more laid back might definitely help in that way. All right. Comfortable clothes, comfortable food, right? Um,
Being away from the noise and the light pollution.
yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
be,
Hmm. Yes, go on.
Nothing, ma'am. That's it.
Okay, all right, Mega. So definitely, this is also something that might overstimulate us, right? Especially if we live in a very hustling, bustling city. If traffic is something that we're stuck in very often, right? Just needing that peace, needing that quiet is something that we might need to seek, right? Um, okay. So, taking a break from social media is definitely something, right? Sometimes even turning off notifications, right? Because all the lights and the sounds from our phone itself can overstimulate us. If you're somebody who works virtually, then limiting your video meetings also might be a way that you want to consider, right? And sometimes just setting like a relaxing evening ambience for yourself. For example, you can play some really soothing music, you can take a nice warm bath, you can light candles with a really nice scent, right? All of these might be helpful. Yes, in the chat box also, I'm seeing a lot of you have different ideas. Definitely, these are great ideas. Please do incorporate them in your own list. If you want to take examples from other people's opinions as well, you can do that. All right. Okay, great. I hope your list is going well this far. Give me a thumbs up if it is. If you need any help with anything this far, you can let me know. I think there's a question from Suhail. I've been difficulty in keep helping friends or just having fun with them. My funny and entertaining nature, so it's kind of failing at emotional rest. Is it so? I wouldn't call it failing, right? Maybe something that just we need to work a little bit more on, right? So maybe when it comes to friends, there's this sense of responsibility that I have to have fun or have to entertain them. So that is something that you might have to explore, right? If you find yourself having some difficulty exploring that by yourself, seeking out professional help is also something that you can explore, right? Because that sort of gives you an outside perspective on how you can differently approach it, maybe. All right. Okay. um, Going for swimming, deep baths. All right, great. So you guys seem like you have a basic idea of what sensory rest looks like, and you also have an idea of what works for you. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to emotional rest. So this is something that Chris was talking about, right? Sometimes she doesn't really feel that she doesn't feel that she can be very authentic or herself around some of the friends, right? Being bored helps, yes, definitely. As a sensory rest, it definitely would help. Okay, so emotionally, right, when you feel that you can't be authentic, like in Chris's example, or if you are someone in a profession where you have to put on that mask throughout the day, like for example, if you're an airline attendant, right, air hostesses, you just always must smile no matter what the passengers are doing. If they're being rude as well, right, you just have to put on that face, right? So this is one profession that might lead to emotional rest deficits. Okay. If you are someone who has people pleasing tendencies, this is also something that you might want to focus on, right? So how do we do this? What are some examples you can think of where you can attain emotional rest? Any ideas you guys have? Yes, Chris?
Journaling, being with someone he can vent with and listen to as well. And another way is trying accepting the things that you are feeling in your own subjective and realizing that they are just as important, if not more. And taking a nice bath can help it.
Right, right, absolutely. So, like you said, journaling. So, journaling can be a great way of just venting out, right? Just putting whatever is on your mind onto paper. That would definitely help. Talking to someone who actually listens would help. Right? Okay, so Mithya, go on.
Yeah, so I think stepping away from an emotionally draining situation, I think that also helps. And other than that, I would say letting your emotions out. I
Hmm.
think that has helped me in the past.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Right. And different people have different ways of, venting out. So, this is something again you can explore. Sometimes people just need like physical body movement to, let out all the pent up energy. Right. So, uh, okay, I'm reading the having someone who listens to us, venting, discussing with a non-judgmental friend. Yes, definitely. And yes, like Sumit was saying, stepping away from very emotionally draining conversations, right? Sometimes you're stuck in that for so long, it can exhaust you. So sometimes just taking a step back might be the rest that you need. Deep conversations. Sometimes it feels very difficult to cry, right? So if this is something that you're not used to, Kanishka, then it might definitely feel difficult to do, right? It is something that with practice might happen. So just allowing yourself the freedom to feel what you're feeling. You don't have to shame yourself for having those emotions, right? Because even though we can't necessarily see the emotions, they are very real. You are feeling them and they are valid. So just giving yourself the freedom to allow yourself to feel that might be helpful, right? Through art, dance, songs, yes, definitely. Art is a way in which we can creatively express our emotions or what we are feeling, right? Screaming, punching a pillow, shouting, definitely. And these are sometimes there is so much pent up emotion inside of us that you just need to get it out, right? So these ways would definitely help in those times, right? It might be unconventional, but if it is helping you, if it is not harmful, right, definitely would help. All right. Okay. So expressing yourself. Uh, okay. So sometimes if you have a tendency to just suppress your emotions, right? Just doing an experiment. Maybe one day you just go and try to express what you're actually feeling instead of suppressing it. That might actually be very freeing for you, right? And sometimes if you feel very emotionally labored, then meeting up with a therapist to, sort of ease yourself out in terms of emotional labor, then that can also really help. All right. I know it can be difficult to do it by yourself. Uh, right? Like Tinker Fairy is saying in the comments, right? It can be really hard even when you're trying by yourself. So, speaking to a therapist might help you find out more ways that can help you ease into this process, right? Because if you don't have a habit, we cannot expect it overnight to suddenly appear, right? It is something that we have to get used to slowly. All right. Okay. And finally, we come to the last type of our rest. I hope your lists have been going well this far. So let's talk about creative rest now. So, what do you guys think comes under this? Or when do you think you might need creative rest? You can raise your hand. Yes, Mubin.
Yeah, it somewhere if our work involves lot more into creative like content writing,
Hmm.
maybe like social media,
Right.
where we have to bring a lot of creative ideas.
Hmm.
So taking rest from that
right?
I think that's the type of, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, if you are somebody who are involved in a field like this, right, where you have to constantly just give output, 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 right, you might face something that in the creative world is called a block, right? Whether it's a writer's block or whatever field you're in, a creative block, right? So, Raj says being break from creative works, yes. Going on vacation is something that helps him, right? Finding a little routine. Yes, Rakshita.
Can even overthinking and being in a very productive cycle also create creative blocks sometimes.
Hmm. Right, right,
I mean, I
absolutely.
have felt that because
Hmm.
I felt it a bit unique of this because people in creative field do have creative blocks, but uh, being out of the creative block and I mean being out of the creative field, but still having that creative block, I felt it completely like I said.
Right, absolutely. So anywhere where you have to basically produce things, right, and you don't always feel like you're getting the ideas or you feel just out of it, right? So that can definitely help. And sometimes there is also this belief attached to when we create something or when we come up with something that it has to be perfect, right? So maybe just doing something that, okay, this is something I'm going to do and I'm going to do it for fun. It doesn't have to come up with a great output or it doesn't have to be an amazing artwork, right? Just doing it for the sake of doing it, right? That is something that can help. um, right? So when we talk about natural examples of creative rest, right, it could just be taking in a sunrise or sunset. So you are appreciating the natural beauty that is there, right? You're not giving any output per se, you're just taking the beauty in, you're just giving yourself a break from creating, right? So the sunrise, sunset, if you want to take a walk in nature, admire the things around you, that can really help, right? When it comes to human created types of creative rest, then we can talk about things like visiting a museum, going to an art festival, right? If there is some kind of music or books or even documentaries that you really find inspiring, then that is also something you can do because it sort of relieves you from the pressure of creating. All you have to do is take in at that moment, and who knows, you might be inspired by it, but we don't want to go in with any expectation that this is going to yield something, right? Bird watching, stargazing, mandala art, if this is something that you're just doing, right, without it expecting to be perfect, might help you, right? So these are examples in which you can do creative rest. All right. So you can definitely write in your own examples of what might help you specifically, right? So yeah, that is the 7 types of rest. How is your list looking this far? What do you think about your list? Would anybody like to unmute and tell me? Under each type of rest, yes, Rakshita.
I think it's actually wonderful to know different types of rest because I have been giving some rest to myself in between, like taking breaks. But I didn't know about, social rest and social rest, I mean, I knew about it, but spiritual rest, creative rest and all of that. So, yeah,
Right.
I think it looks more appropriate now for me to take a rest rather than feeling guilty about it.
Okay, so
So,
your voice
yeah,
was muffled for some parts, but I'm hearing that you are feeling good about this list that you have, and you've been trying to give yourself time to rest, and it has been helpful, right? I
yeah,
hope this
yeah,
list sort of further helps you in your journey of allowing yourself to rest, right?
yeah.
I think Afreen also sent me a heart, so thank you for that. Yes, Zuleika, go on.
So I think this has just helped me understand that there are so many other ways of resting. Like, you don't really realize on a day-to-day basis that just the simplest task of just taking a bath, or putting your things in a certain place, or just writing down something would actually help you
Hmm.
uh, rest so profoundly in, like, in your daily life. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is the thing, right? So we often think that rest has to be something very huge that we have to take so much time out for, but sometimes even a few minutes in a day might be helpful for us. I'm seeing us a few more hearts as well, but don't leave just yet, right? I have a few more things to discuss with you guys. So now that we have made our list of how we are going to rest, I want you to sort of just look back maybe and think about what you think might be some of the challenges that you have faced in the past, or that you anticipate that you will face when you try to rest.
Ma'am, that's what I wanted to ask, and it I think still leads to the topic where we have started the workshop. That sometimes we feel guilty that when we do rest and we engage in such activities, there because there are too many things which are pending up, and there are too many things. To do list is too
Hmm.
much things to do, and that all the things are piled up. And when we engage in such rest, except physical rest,
Hmm.
so it sort of yes create a guilt that yes we have to do that thing. And one more question I wanted to ask, that when to what is the limitation, what time limit, how to set the time limit, that okay, because how to step out of that comfort zone
Hmm.
once we engage in such type of rest. I'm not saying that the taking a rest is a comfort, we are stepping into the comfort zone, but
Hmm.
how to step out of that comfort zone, what is the time limit, that okay now we have taken the rest,
Hmm.
how to control that feeling that now we have to back again to the work, now to we have to face again the challenges and be back to the reality.
Hmm. Right, right. Thank you for sharing that, Mega. Right, these are very real challenges that we do face. Right, so even when we do try to rest, that guilt comes in because physical rest is like the only type of rest that is normalized in our society. Right, so this is something that we definitely have to take a look at, and scheduling also. So right now, I'm getting this feeling that. We have to limit our rest, right? Because it might take too much out of our time, and maybe I won't be able to do as much as I had planned when it comes to my productivity part of work, right? But one thing that we have to keep in mind here is that rest is as equal a part of our productivity, right? Okay, and we will answer these questions in the next slide. Yes, Zuleka, go on.
Oh no, I think it just remained the
Okay,
hand thing made up from earlier. Sorry.
all right, no problem. Yes, Rakshita, go on.
One of the major challenges is during, like, if you have a work backlog, but still after working for a week, you need rest. So that is one of the things which makes me guilty even till today.
Hmm.
Because I've been trying it for 2 to 3 years to
Hmm.
take a proper rest and balance it out.
Hmm.
But when once you see the to-do list and you have the backlog, you feel like okay, even the
Hmm.
resting time becomes a place where you constantly think about what will I do next.
Hmm. Right, right. So there is this constant sort of, your brain is sort of in overdrive the whole time. Even when you are doing one thing, you're always thinking about the next thing that I have to do, right? If I go through the chat box, some of you say that the thoughts that keep coming, past things that I haven't done yet, makes me overthink, right? We're not resting correctly now. Okay. How to know what type of nest do I need? Being bored of resting, wasted. All right. So the list that we have discussed today, right? Within that, we've also discussed the deficits that sort of give us the sign that this is the kind of rest that I need, right? So let's talk about that now. Yes, Chris.
So, for me, in this regard, is that I find it difficult to find a balance, and then I guess I go on extremes on either side, and impulse as well. Like it's an impulse to just use phone, or it's an
Hmm.
impulse to do something and then leave it halfway and do something else. So
Hmm.
those are the things I struggle with a lot. And in my mind, I would be thinking, oh, I'd be like 45 minutes. I would do this, and then I'd take 15 minutes of break. But then I would think, what if I get it into a flow in these 45 minutes, or if I don't find this interesting at all, then what would I do? And then this thinking just leads to more and more procrastination and activity as well.
Right, right, absolutely. So doing something, either you do too little of it, or you just get stuck in a loop of doing it over and over again, right? Even earlier, Megha asked a question about how do we know how much to really give, right? So when our body sort of gives us a sign that I am tired, that I need to rest, right? It is doing that for a reason, right? It's not simply telling you that I do need to rest. So maybe at that point of time, you need to step back and see, why is my body telling me this, right? And maybe if it is telling me, maybe it really is important to rest, and it is not something that I'm doing to waste my time. If I'm not feeling rested properly, then maybe it is a sign that I'm not resting in the right way, right? I'm doing the activity, but my mind is not at peace, right? So now let's go on and talk about how to deal with these challenges, right? So first, let's talk about scheduling the rest. Okay. So before we schedule the rest, one of the things we have to tell ourselves is rest is an important thing. I'm not doing this to waste time, right? This is a need that I have, and this is something I have to do. Sometimes it feels too late to have a rest. Yes, Ashish, I do understand that it's late, but something better than nothing, right? In the smallest way we can, in the smallest step we can, let's try to do our best. All right. So when it comes to scheduling rest, now that you have this list, you might be very excited. You might be thinking that, oh, I'm going to do all of this in one day and feel fully rested. That is not the way to go. All right. So one of the things that we can start here with, right, to sort of ease ourselves into this process, to make a habit out of it instead of overwhelming ourselves with it, right? We can maybe identify the one or two biggest rest deficits that you have found in this workshop today. All right. So as you are going through the list, you might have felt that, oh, this I don't do too much of, this I am doing pretty well, right? So identify which areas you need the most rest in, right? And start with those, right? So you don't have to try and eat the whole elephant at once, right? Over time, just maybe devote maybe just 10 minutes in a day. You don't have to do it over a long period of time. Just do 10 minutes in a day, see how that feels. If it feels like too much, then reduce it. If it feels like too little, then increase it, right? You can do maybe either daily or weekly, and then over time, slowly you can incorporate all different 7 types of rest. Okay. And when I say schedule, I mean like actually put it on your calendar, right? Because then it tells you that this is a thing I have to do. It is a real thing. And you might be very tempted, if you're busy, that this is the first thing I have to take off my calendar, right? No, this is an important thing that I have to do. This is a way in which I am caring for myself, right? So this is something I will do no matter what. All right. Can we have all the lists, please? So Rajita, when I was talking about this, I meant that the list that you have made of your own, right? Because your examples could vary for each of the people, right? So whatever list you made for yourself, just try and schedule one of those activities for a minimum amount of time. Okay. Small, tiny steps is what we're going to start with. All right. So scheduling makes it real, makes it in our head that I cannot skip this. This is an important part of my day, and I will give it as much importance. All right. Next is talking about setting boundaries, right? Like in the beginning example, where some people just don't understand that you are resting and you need that rest, right? So this is something that we have to do in order to protect ourselves, right? Sometimes people don't come in with a malicious intent, right? They just don't know about it. So like we were talking about the social rest, right? Sometimes people just understand if you tell them that I need some time to recharge, because they also might have felt that in their own lives at some point, right? So they understand the concept of social battery. Just have to convey with them that, hey, I am doing this right now, could I get back to you in a while, right? Could I get back to you when I'm feeling a bit more recharged, right? um, uh, okay, I'm not sure what is okay. Overlap as well. For example, emotional binging or crying, binging or crying. Right, absolutely, Chris. So these are very real problems, and I do understand that this workshop is not like a heal all sort of solution to this, right? If you do want to discuss your concerns more in depth, then I would definitely recommend that you reach out to a mental health professional. If you have one of your own, then great. You can also reach out to someone at MindTribe. We will be providing with you the details with you at the end. Okay? Yes, Rakshita.
Can overstimulating also lead to perception or perspective paradox? Like the
Sorry,
sensory rest. I mean, if how do I identify the need of a sensory rest? Like, I did identify it like I do have a perspective paradox. Like because of social media influencers also put out things like you have to do this, you have to do that. So many a times I feel that I'm
Right,
not that authentic self deciding things in life.
right,
So,
right. I
can sensory rest deficit lead to it?
Definitely. So when it comes to the taking in of the information, that would come under sensory rest, right? But if it's making you feel that I have to do this, then it might be giving you a mental overload and that would come under the mental rest part of it. If it is making you act in a way towards people that you don't feel authentic, then that would come under emotional rest. Okay, so different aspects could come into play over there in that moment. Okay. Minakshi asked, do we need minimum 8 hours sleep every night? This is again something that I would not want to make a blanket statement about, right? Different people have different type of needs, like, and you can definitely explore and find what works best for you, right? Certain number hours of sleep might make you feel very refreshed. Some might make you feel lethargic, right? So that is something you have to explore for yourself. But recommended is 7 hours of sleep, but that is something definitely you have to see what works for you. Yes, Chris.
So I think one manifestation of guilt in me was that I have a tendency. I always had the need to get a good afternoon sleep, and there were times I was told that, "Oh, don't sleep in the afternoon. You'd automatically get sleep at night." So I would just like maybe be on my mobile if I can't do anything else. I can muster up the energy to do mentally demanding work like homework or studies or meet people, and also I would just be there because that something at least would catch keep my interest, and then
Hmm.
that would lead to feeling more and more tired, and even during night time if still keep holding my interest, I would just keep watching it, or maybe my like functioning to sleep would be disrupted more than when it would be when I would have like gotten a nice afternoon sleep however much I wanted, and then gone to sleep at night how whenever I felt like sleeping.
Right, right. So guilt is definitely one of the things that we have to work on over here, right? And like everything else, resting is also a skill, right? So this is something that we have to learn over time. So identifying if you are doing something in that moment, right? You just need to just take a step back and analyze, is this really helping me, or am I feeling more guilty about stuff, right? So in that moment you have to sort of take the decision, okay, if this scrolling through is making me feel more guilty instead of re-energize, then you have to take a step back and put that away and just sort of look and realize what deficit am I facing right now that I need the rest, right? So that is something that will take a lot of practice. It will not happen overnight because even the scrolling is something that we've made a habit out of, right? It's been happening over the years. That's why we've gotten used to it. So undoing it as well will take a lot of practice, right? Sometimes we feel nothing or could not recognize what happened to our behavior, then how to get out. When we do nothing, like want to but unable to, right? Definitely. So that we'll be talking about next, right? So this is something that might be a sign of burnout, right? Where you really want to do the things, but you are not able to gather the energy, or you don't feel like you have the capacity to do it, right? So that is something we are going to be discussing next. Okay, so let me just complete the setting boundaries part of it, and then we'll go on to the burnout part of it. Okay, so social battery you can convey, right? That is one way. um, Another thing is setting work life boundaries is also something that is important. Okay, so if you have a set time of working, try to adhere to that to ensure that you don't, let it spill onto your resting time or your leisure time or your unwinding time, right? If there is someone at work or at home who is giving you additional responsibilities and your plate is already full, right? Here you'll have to sort of practice saying no to that demand, right? You don't have to be rude to them, you don't have to tell them to get lost, I can't do this. You can just tell them that right now I do not have the capacity, right? But I appreciate you reaching out to me, maybe some other time. Right now I cannot do this, right? So saying no is also one way of setting a boundary. All right. So, feeling good about this far, any questions you have, or you feel like there is any other way in which you can ensure that you are resting in the right way? You can give me a thumbs up, or yes, Vivek, go on.
What I would say is I don't keep alarms because what I feel is the alarm should not say that the time is up and you should not sleep. The body should, because I wake up naturally. Like I hate alarms. Like alarm should not say ki, it's time to wake up. It's my body will naturally woke up, and what I sleep when I sleep, I go to sleep and left to my body that the time he'll that the battery is 100%. Then he'll wake up.
Right,
It's what I
right.
feel would work basically.
Okay, and that's a
And
great way, right? It means that you are sort of in tune with your biological clock, right? And it is
no,
great that you are able to do that for yourself.
no, matlab, but I believe in sleeping the best what you can, and I remember the best time of my life is when I have slept. Matlab, the I was 100% rest, and be it emotionally or be it energy wise, I feel the best when I that time of life. And I would come because other commitments are there, but there will come a time when I'll feel the same basically.
Right, right, absolutely. And sometimes we might have to adjust because we have to get to work or things like that. But if this is something that you can do for yourself, then definitely you should do it. Chris asks, not getting afternoon sleep or doesn't help me. Rather said it is supposed to. Is there something wrong with that? Absolutely not, Chris. Right? During this whole workshop, we have not given like one specific list that will work for everybody. Right? I've encouraged you to make your own lists because rest is subjective. Right? Different things work for different people. So it doesn't. There's no wrong or right over there. All right. Okay, so I saw a lot of thumbs up before, so I am going to move on to next. Okay, so what happens if you don't rest? I'm just going to skim through this really quickly. So, some of the physical symptoms of what we call burnout, right? This point of extreme exhaustion because of overworking yourself and no time to rest, right? Or not able to rest. So, some of the physical symptoms, if you have burnout, might be might be any gastrointestinal problems, high blood pressure, immune function is poor, like you get sick very often, right? If you have recurring headaches, any sleep issues, right? And if you have chronic stress, it may be felt physically when in terms of aches, pains, very low energy levels, right? Changes in appetite, either you're eating too much, you're eating too little, right? So these are some of the physical symptoms of burnout that you might notice in yourself. Okay, when we come to mental symptoms, right, you might be alienating yourself or might be alienated by others from work related activities, right? Sometimes when individuals experience burnout, they start viewing their jobs as very stressful and very frustrating. You might start becoming very cynical about your work conditions and even your workmates, right, people you work with. You might start to sort of emotionally distance yourself. You might begin to feel numb about your work. When it comes to emotional exhaustion, if over time your symptoms are untreated, it might cause you to feel very drained out emotionally, unable to cope, right? You might feel a depressed mood. You might face feelings of worthlessness, or even things that you found interest or pleasure in before, this is something that you might not find anymore. Suicidal thoughts, right? So that is also a very common symptom when it comes to burnout. All right. And finally, when it comes to our performance, right? Burnout, it can affect the way in which we, just do our everyday functioning, right? So whether it's tasks at home or even at work, right? Maybe at home your main jobs involve caring for other family members, right? If you have burnout, you might feel symptoms like you're feeling negative about all of these tasks, or you're having difficulty concentrating on these tasks, and you might find yourself that you are lacking the creativity that you used to have before, right? And all of these together might lead to sort of a reduction in your performance. All right. So, do you feel like, and all of these combined, right, when they affect you to a point where you don't feel like you can function, it's affecting your daily functioning, right? This is something that you might want to look into, right? And it might be a cause of concern, right? Do any of you feel like you relate with these, or you feel like you need to look more into this? Okay, feeling since a week. Okay. All right. Okay. So if any of you do relate to these things, then I will talk next about, if you do notice these in yourself, what we can do next. All right. So one of the things that we discussed, like we did before, right? Burnout is not laziness, right? In laziness, you can do the things, but you don't want to, you don't feel like doing it, right? In burnout, it is, you really want to do this, you want to get up and just go do it, but you cannot do it, right? You don't have the capacity to do it. You don't feel equipped enough to do it in that moment, right? So it might be a sign of burnout. So if you do see these signs in yourself, one of the first things you have to do is allow yourself compassion, right? There is no need to shame yourself for not being able to do these things, because if you have this idea of my best, my level best, right, it might have been different at different times, and it keeps changing over time, right? So in that moment, what you need is the compassion and not to shame yourself, right? And the things that we have discussed today, right, try to slowly incorporate them in order to make sure that your body is meeting the rest deficits that you do have, right, to sort of nurture yourself. Okay, and like we discussed, don't have to do them all together, slowly, one step at a time. Okay. And finally, if you feel like this is something that you need a bit more help with, that you by yourself are not able to do it at a very good pace or in the pace that you would like, then I would definitely encourage you to consider therapy, because your therapist can help you find out what are the blocks you are facing in applying these things in your daily life, right? Okay. So now, as we speak about therapy, I would just like to go on and talk about the counseling offerings that MindTribe has. Right, right now we are offering very affordable sessions at 1440 per 45-minute session, right? And we also have a lot of packages that further enhance the affordability of these sessions. All right. And as a token of our appreciation for you coming into this workshop and staying this long, interacting with us so much, the first three people who reach out to us would receive one complimentary consultation. All right. So the details will be shared in the group itself. So you can definitely reach out to us. All right. You can either reach out to Harshita or you can reach out to me as well. Okay. When we talk about MindTribe, Dr. Prerna Kohli is the founder, right? And she is a distinguished psychologist, and she's received a lot of accolades for her work, including the prestigious President of India Award. And through MindTribe, we offer affordable counseling. We also offer free group therapy, right? So if you are following us on social media, if you're part of the groups, you will receive regular updates about this. And we also have a vast library of different resources that you can help. Okay, that can help you. Sorry. All right. So these are my contact details. If you want to reach out to me, just take a screenshot of this. I am in the group as well. You can contact me through that. All right. And yeah, any questions that you have? Yes, Chris?
I procrastinate a lot, but still the days of rest feel far and few in between, and I feel like I am more productive on the days I rest, feel rested than the days I'm supposed to be working, because that does never leads to the phase of work in the way that I want. Like even if it's just personally developing my skills and all, it just feel like it's, I don't know if I'm actually explaining it correctly, but
Right.
yeah, please tell
Absolutely.
me what you understand.
Yes, yes, absolutely, Chris. As far as I've understood, you say that one of the days that you do rest, you actually find yourself that you're more productive, right? So, as we've discussed throughout our workshop today, rest is definitely a very important part in sort of enhancing and optimizing our productivity, right? So, it is no wonder that when you do feel well rested, you're able to work better. Yes, Abhishek, go on.
I want to ask you that कि कितना रेस्ट करना चाहिए, क्योंकि आई वांट टू टेल यू दैट कि मेरे मतलब 2 दिन में एग्जाम है,
Hmm.
एंड मैंने अभी तक मतलब एंड मेरा वो लास्ट अटेम्प्ट एग्जाम का, अगर मैंने नहीं दिया तो मेरी मतलब मैं इस साल यूनिवर्सिटी में एडमिशन नहीं कर,
Hmm.
दैट वाज द केस।
Hmm.
बट द थिंग इज दैट कि मैं हर रोज बोलता हूँ कि मैं सुबह उठूंगा, तो
Hmm.
मेरी सुबह होती है 10-11 बजे, मतलब
Hmm.
पूरा काम सब कुछ करके 10 बजे तक हो जाती है। एंड
Hmm.
उसके बाद खाना खाने के बाद नींद आती है, फिर सो जाता हूँ, फिर
Hmm.
3 बजे उठता हूँ, एंड उसके बाद नहीं क्या फिर मतलब पढ़ने की इच्छा नहीं होती,
Hmm.
तो फिर रात मतलब नहीं क्या एकदम 8-9 बजे फिर पढ़ना चालू करता हूँ, तो 5-6 बजे तक पढ़ता हूँ।
Hmm. Okay.
बट
Okay. So
हाँ,
this
बट
is
उसकी वजह से समटाइम्स जब मैं पढ़ता हूँ तो एकदम एग्जॉस्ट लगता है माइंड।
अच्छा. ओके ओके. सो अगर आप एग्जॉस्टेड फील कर रहे हो तो इट माइट बी अ साइन कि आपको रेस्ट की ज़रूरत है, राइट? और जो आपने पहले डिस्क्राइब किया, इट इज साउंडिंग लाइक अ वेरी क्लासिक केस ऑफ प्रोक्रेस्टिनेशन, है ना? कि जब आपको थॉट आ रहा है कि मुझे पढ़ना है, तो आप बोलते हो कि मैं सुबह पढ़ूंगा, right? So there might be a emotion attached over here, right? This is sounding like a very important exam to you, so there might be some feelings attached over there, maybe of not doing very well in the exam, right? That might be affecting you, right? So for this, I would definitely recommend that you take a one-on-one session, because exploring the emotion related to the procrastination is something that we have to work on, right? It is not that you don't want to study, right? When the time comes, maybe the emotions are becoming so much that it is not letting you study, right? The emotions become a lot more than your will to study. So that is something I would suggest that you explore in a one-on-one session, right? To find out how you can optimize your way in which you study. Okay.
Yes ma'am, but can you tell me something for current now?
Okay, so one thing I would definitely suggest over here, and this also takes practice, but you can definitely try it out, is separating your emotion from your task, right? So your emotion might be that you're feeling scared in that moment, or you're feeling ashamed or embarrassed in that moment, right? So separating that from your task. So what you are feeling does not mean that you are less able to sort of study, or it doesn't take away from your ability. So separating what you are feeling from your task, and doing the task irrespective of how you are feeling at that moment, that might be something that helps, right? And something called the Eisenhower matrix, right? I'll just type in the chat box, maybe you could google it and see if it helps you out. That might be something that would help you. Okay. Rakshita, go on.
What can lead to performance related burnout? Like, what is the cause of it?
The cause of.
Performance related burnout. Like you said, reduced productivity,
Right.
negative feelings about the tasks and concentration issues, and yeah,
Hmm.
reduced creativity, all of that. Is it about expecting unrealistically, like probably we have 10 hours a day and only we can do certain tasks and not do the rest?
Might definitely be, right? Having unrealistic expectations can often be a factor that drives us to sort of overwork ourselves, right? So that might be that, a factor that is affecting burnout over there. Another thing is maybe you just need to step back take a break, right? And when you feel rested, maybe then try to return to your work, right? It might be a lot of factors, right? So that is something that you might have to explore. If you are open to doing it on a one-on-one session, I'm more than glad to discussing this further. All right. Just going to the chat box. Tell me the ways of social rest. Okay, let me just go back to. Um, okay, so over here we spoke basically about evaluating our relationships. So spending more time with people who do give me energy versus spending less time with those who drain my energy. Spending out time to be alone or spending time with pets, that might help. All right. This is just basic examples. You can definitely look out for what works for you. Um, okay. Makes me numb, dull, dissolving, turn off the task, how to tackle that. So this might be, Alina, would you like to unmute and tell me a bit, I'm not sure I understood what you've said in the chat box. Do you think of yourself as disobeying yourself when you turn off a task? Is that what you mean? If that is one thing, then the same thing that I've shared with Abhishek, right? That separating the emotion from the ability to do the task, right? That is something that might help you.
Uh, yeah, actually, uh, whenever someone tell me to do something,
Hmm.
my brain is so much at a dull
Hmm.
state that I cannot obey them, or
Hmm.
I just tell everyone, okay, I will do that, but I can't do that in reality.
Right, right. Okay. So if somebody tells you something, then you don't feel like doing it anymore.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, all right. So this is also a very common concern that people face, right? So finding ways over there that sort of make you feel like you are the one who came up with that idea, sort of trick your brain into doing that. That is something that you could try out, right? But I would definitely like to explore this further. I don't want to give like a very generalized suggestion about this, right? So I would certainly encourage you to come to a session and we can discuss this in depth. Okay.
Okay, okay, sure.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining in today. I'm so glad that you were here and I hope that this was a very helpful session for you all. Okay. So that is it. Feel free to drop off. If you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me on WhatsApp as well. And we will be sending you a feedback form. So please do fill that out. All right. Have a great rest of the weekend. I hope you can use your list.